I thought I'd do a video on my entire knife collection. Now, this isn't actually going to be my entire knife collection, just because there's a couple of blades I've had before I can't find anywhere, so I really don't know where they've gone. I imagine they're in a coat pocket somewhere, and then obviously I'll find them eventually, or they'll not turn up, or if I buy a new one, that's when they'll turn up. And I've got things like throwing knives that I'm not including in this, just because I wanted this to simply be about like normal blades. So, don't know where to start. I guess I'll start at the bottom here and then work my way around. So, this is, I think you get them from Budk in America. This is, I think they call it something like the Jungle Survivor knife. I think I either got it from Blades or Bows or Amazon UK at one point. The edge looks a bit rough. It's because it didn't come very sharp, so I've used a bench grinder on it to get, because it's only a cheap knife, you know, I didn't really care, to get a sort of cutting edge on it. So it's not the best edge done on it, because I just did it myself very quickly, but it will at least cut stuff now. It's cheap and cheerful, you know, the entire thing's made of stainless steel, but you can sort of abuse these knives, and I think they're only about a £5. So I don't know if Blades and Bows still stocks those, but I think Budk in America does them as well. Maybe under slightly different names, but that's that one. This is one of the first knives I bought, and it's again a Budk type one. This one was advertised as a bayonet knife. It's absolutely massive, bigger than most normal bayonets. It has got a bayonet lug there. It's generally just like a massive Bowie knife, and again cheap and cheerful. It's got a pommel that goes all the way through with a tang. It's not like the strongest knife in the world, but I have abused this. I mounted this on the spear at one point through there, so you could use it in a survival spear. And yeah, it's a good enough knife. Again, this is another one I've put to the bench grinder to make sharper. And it's fairly good and practical for what it is. As I said, it is a cheap knife. Don't expect the world from it, but it's certainly not bad for the price you sort of pay for these. So that's that knife. Now, this is an interesting one. It's the Mtech marine knife, which is a K-bar clone. So I'll just get this out here. Now, this is one that when I bought it, although it's a nice knife, it came completely blunt. I mean, like, you could not cut a thing with it. It was like a flat surface. So they've done a really bad job in the factory sharpening it. It's 440 stainless. As I said, it was completely blunt and impractical. So what I did was, again, I put it to the bench grinder. A bit of steel actually chipped off of this, which isn't a good sign, but it's now actually got a sharp, practical edge. Again, if I bought like a really expensive, nice knife and it wasn't sharp, I'd complain to the company or I'd get a professional to sharpen it. As this is a cheap one, I'll do it on a bench grinder, and you know, I've got it to a sharp enough degree. So this is actually a practical, useful knife now. As far as I can tell, it's made exactly like the K-bar, only it's made out of 440 stainless, not carbon steel, but it's actually quite a good knife in terms of how it's built. It's just a shame that they didn't bother sharpening it in the factory when I got it. So, okay, get this out, this tight bayonet. We have the AK bayonet. I can't remember if this is an AKM or AK-74 bayonet. It's got the scabbard which could be used as a wire cutter here. Or is it that side? Yeah, that side. So you can attach it to its scabbard and use it as a wire cutter like that. Quite a cool design. A few other bayonets have that as a feature. Again, these aren't really meant to be sharp, but I'm not entirely sure on that, because bayonets aren't meant to be sharp because they're designed for stabbing. But some bayonets are more utility knives than pure bayonets. They do have a sharp edge. My one had a kind of semi-sharp edge when I got him. So again, this is one I've put to a bench grinder. I've got a good enough edge on it. It can actually now be used as a really practical sort of utility knife because it's got the wire cutter. You can cut stuff with it fairly easy. You can actually chop wood with this. I was trying that earlier. So yeah, the AK bayonets are really tough knives. I like them. Not sure if they're meant to have a sharp edge, but I've given it one and I like it with a sharp edge. Of course, if you're a purist, you might actually not like that, but I've done it anyway. Okay, so here's my Czech VZ58 knife, and this is one that again didn't come sharp. The end had broken off of mine as well. So I've put it to the bench grinder, I've ground a sort of point onto it, and I've ground a sort of semi-sharp edge on the side here. If you're a purist, you might hate me for doing that, but I sort of thought, I've got a bit of a rusty old knife, not much point keeping it as, you know, a useless knife, I might as well grind an edge on it. I paid for it. There's a lot more around there if you want one that's not been modified. So now I've got this as a kind of just practical knife that you can stab or cut stuff with. I won't get this out the bayonet because it's going to get grease out of its scabbard, because it's going to get grease everywhere, but that is a Lee Enfield No. 4 Spike bayonet. I'm sure you're familiar with these pig sticker bayonets. They come in all shapes and sizes. That's not the cool sword bayonet, it's just the one that's a pure spike. It won't fit on my Enfield, unfortunately, because I have a No. 1 Mark III Enfield, I think it is, and that's for the No. 4 Mark I Enfield, and they have a different kind of lug for the bayonets on them. But again, that would be a very good bayonet, just a pure spike bayonet if I had a rifle to mount it on. Okay, so here we have my little pocket knives, and again I did have a Gerber one that was quite good, a little Gerber lock knife, but I can't find it anywhere. So this one's called, I think it's Promithi. It's just called really the UK legal knife. It's quite good. It's got a little pocket clip on there, and it's got a fairly decent blade. It's lightweight, but its blade slightly under 3 inches and doesn't lock, so that means it's UK legal. And if you wanted a pure knife that's UK legal, these are really good, because the Swiss Army knives are really good all-round sort of utility things, but they're not actually, you know, built around the knife themselves. The knife's like an accessory. So this is better as an actual knife. Really nice design. You could get these cheap on Amazon, so I definitely recommend one if you want to pick one of those up. Here we go, Swiss Army knife. Everybody knows what one of these is. Victorinox Swiss Army knife. Mine has a load of different accessories on, as they all do, but there's blades on it. I think this was the hiker one, or it might have been another model, but it's quite a good knife. Lots of practical things on it. I use a bottle opener the most, to be honest, to open beer with it, and any of the other actual blades on it, but again, it's a nice knife. I definitely recommend Victorinox. If you're one of the weird people that doesn't have one. I won't go into this in detail. This is like a Rolson rip-off of a Swiss Army knife. It's good enough. The blades aren't very sharp on it, but obviously you can sharpen them up yourself. Much cheaper than Victorinox, but I basically use that for all the accessories and not the knife, and if I want the knife I use a Victorinox, or I use like one of those. But, you know, overall it's alright for like the £2 I paid for it. Okay, so here are my sort of favourite knives. I've put them in this area. So, obviously you've heard me talk about this one before. It's a reproduction by Sheffield Steel of the Fairbairn-Sykes or Fairbairn-Sykes fighting knife. This isn't a blade designed to cut, so I wouldn't sharpen this because it's not meant to be. It's all about the point. It is very, very sharp. At the point, it's like a needle point. It goes through pretty much anything. These were designed as commando knives for killing sentries silently, and I'm sure they'd be very good at that. I've had a bit of fun stabbing mine into things, but obviously, as I said, I'm not going to sharpen the edges because they're not meant to be sharpened on this, and I like it just the way it is. So that's a Sheffield Steel Fairbairn-Sykes reproduction. Okay, this is the one I talked about recently. It's my Sheffield Steel reproduction of the Israeli Commando knife. Again, it's pretty much a K-bar. Unlike the normal K-bar, it doesn't sort of have the hilt at the bottom, or the pommel, whatever you want to call it. So it's, you know, it's a bit more front heavy than the K-bar. It chops very well. I tried that. You know, it came with just the right sharpness. It has a finger and thumb groove there. So I really like that for, you know, its balance and everything. Really nice knife. Much better the Mtech one. The Mtech one's pretty much a 1-1 copy of the K-bar. It just didn't come sharp. This is pretty much, you know, K-bar inspired, but a very nice blade and very practical. So this is definitely one of my go-to knives now, if I want a knife for anything. Okay, and last but not least of the knives I really like. This was from Blades and Bows. I got this a few years ago, and it is, I think it was the Master Cutlery Survivor knife it was called. It says Survivor on there. There's other knives in this range. Try and get that in frame. It's only stainless steel, but again it's a Bowie type knife, Bowie knife. It's got a proper sort of full tang on it. Very good anti-slip grip. It sort of feels like gun plastic kind of stuff around the knife. It's a no-frills sort of cheap survival knife, but it does everything it's meant to do. Has a nice sort of decent plastic scabbard on there. But I like this for the same reasons I like the K-Bar. It does pretty much everything you want it to do. And it was only like 15 quid when I got it from Blades and Bows. So sadly I don't think you can get this particular model anymore, but you can get similar ones that they do. If it wasn't the Master Cutlery one, it was an Elk Ridge one, but either way it's a nice knife. I have a couple of other Elk Ridge sort of bladed things which are good. And I know people with Elk Ridge knives, I have nothing bad to say against them. I think it was called the Master Cutlery Survival Knife. Now, last but not least, this is a knife my friend Bart got for me when he was in Morocco. Some sort of tribal knife. So I'll try and get that out of the scabbard as best I can. There you go. It's a bit rusty, but an interesting looking blade with some pictures on there. And again, this is just kind of like a tribal knife. He bought it for me as a gift. I can't remember which tribe this is meant to be from. I've heard some people in the comments on the video say it's Bedouin, others, you know, say different tribes, so I can't tell you what it is because people argue in the comments as well saying who it's actually made by. But he did buy it in Morocco anyway, and it's a little sort of tribal dagger. So it's kind of similar in profile to the Fairbairn-Sykes, but a lot smaller. But very nice gift anyway. That's not the sort of knife I'd ever abuse and smash around. It's just kind of a nice gift. That's why I got it in this old jewellery box. But yeah, there you go. That's most of my knife collection anyway. As I said, these are definitely my 3 favourites. I do like these knives where I've sharpened them as well. Obviously, the pocket knives are good. And these are kind of the cheap and cheerful ones as well. So, hope you've enjoyed the video. As I said, unfortunately I did have a couple of other blades I couldn't find to put in the video. But this is pretty much my knife collection as it stands right now.